start the recording, Juliana. Yep, I see it. Perfect.
All right, good morning, everyone. Thank you for taking time from your break to listen to Juliana and I talk about hopefully everything you need to know about planning for residency. There have been a lot of changes this year, which we will go through in the presentation, so please pay attention. And it's very detailed because you don't have access to ERAS yet, so I'm trying to provide as much information as possible so that you can understand what they're looking for. So to begin with, just make sure that you check with your professional organization for any other updates regarding rotations and letters. As some of you may know, I do short specialty meetings on Tuesday nights in July and August for every specialty. And I go over all the match data, both from NYTCOM and the national match data, and number of applicants for your specialty, and any new guidelines that you may need to know about or remind you about things that are important for that specialty. You should all have your token by now because it was sent in an email in May 25 after we presented to you in July. It is imperative that you try and have as many letters from your third year as possible because sometimes, as we all know, faculty and attendings won't write letters. Just as a reminder, there are 5 main components to ERAS. The first one is My ERAS, which is your site, and that's where you're going to complete your application and personal statement, select the programs you want to apply to, and assign documents to be received by those programs. The second is the Dean's Workstation, which is my workstation. So I created the token number. I'm going to scan and attach the supporting documents to your application, specifically the transcript and the MSPE. The LOR portal, which is where letter writers upload letters. And just to let you know, that's one of the changes this year. It does not affect anything that you already have saved in your ERAS accounts. Don't worry about that. The Program Director's Workstation, which is how program directors receive, sort, review, evaluate, and rank applications. And what's known as the post office, which is basically how everything gets transmitted from, various entities such as MBOME to your account so that you can get your supporting documents. You will receive access to My ERAS on June 4th, and that's when you have access to everything and you can start completing the application. Useful areas of this site are the My ERAS login, important dates in the timeline, resources and the user guide, tutorials, participating specialties, and programs. Okay, now I'm going to try and explain this because there's a lot of confusion. The application is what is also known as the worksheet. And that's what you're going to complete online with your experiences from CV. All the other documents, whether it's your personal statement, LORs, score reports, transcript, those are known as other documents. So the application is that online worksheet that you're going to complete from your experiences. Make sure that you continue to confirm letters, authors. I know some students have been waiting several weeks now for a letter, and it does not hurt to send out a reminder to them that, ERAS opens June 4th, and I'd like to have your letter as part of my application. That's a way to sort of soothe the constant bothering, because I know some of them take their time. You upload your photographs, select your programs, assign supporting documents, and transmit your applications to programs no later than September 22nd. And I always suggest the day before because, as we've known this past year, we've had internets go out, we've had weather cause problems with internets. Sometimes the system gets overloaded, so you want to make sure that your documents are your application is in on time. Letters of recommendation must be uploaded by the authors to the LOR portal. Just a reminder, and I say this every year, medical schools do not have access to the LOR portal. We cannot see. The only thing we can see is whether you requested an upload and if it got uploaded. That's why we provided the NYTCOM form back in July and again in October, so that if you wanted letters to become here to be stored in your account, that can be done. The examining boards, MBOME and MBOME and MBME are where you will receive and process requests for score reports. There is a change for how you will be requesting your USMLE step scores, so that's something else I will go over this presentation. We will, as I stated previously, we will submit the medical school transcript and the MSPE letters. My only role in both the transcript and MSPE letters is uploading them. So I don't review them. I do review the transcripts, but I don't review the letters. I get PDF files from Danielle, and that's automatically uploaded. Programs traditionally contact the ERAS post office on a daily basis in the beginning to download application materials sent to them from applicants. However, there is no guarantee this will happen this year because what I'm hearing is they will only download early on, and then if they're and wait for additional documents. At a meeting that I went to, last week or the week before, program director suggests that if you, for example, get an updated score report, or if you get a late letter, that it is in your best interest to just quickly email the program coordinator and let them know that a new document and what it is has recently been uploaded to ERAS and it's available for them to review. Last year, 96+% of the applicants applied prior to programs downloading applications. So that's why it's important to get all your documents and everything in on time. Just a reminder, there are 3 types of programs that you can apply to as a fourth-year medical student. First is categorical, which is when a residency program includes all the years of the residency. And you'll see in the code number that is attached to the program, it's going to have a C at the end. Advanced is a program that begins in year 2, which is 2028, such as anesthesia, derm, PM&R, radiology. So that is going to have an A for advanced. And those students are also going to have to apply to a preliminary or transitional year. That's the 1-year program, your intern year, and it begins in 27, and then you would automatically, if you matched, go straight into your advanced program. Okay, there are 4 distinct tabs on the your My ERAS dashboard. One is the account, which is where you can update your personal information. There's a checklist, you get messages, change your password, and this is where you can track the status of the documents that you've submitted. Application, that's your personal information, your biographical information, your education, your experiences, licensure, and publications, which is now known as Scholarly Works, which I'll also get to as we move on in the presentation. These things can be updated until you certify and submit. And this is a reminder that once you certify and submit your application, only after I've reviewed it and approved it, you cannot make any changes. So that's why it's important to make sure that, some students may be waiting to find out if something's published or something like that. There is no difference whether you submit the day it opens in September or on the 22nd. There is no such thing as first come, first serve. Everybody who applies from the day it opens, which I think is September 4th, until the day before programs download, which is September 22nd, all you're going to have on your application is September 22nd. Once programs start downloading, that's when they start adding the time. Okay, documents. These are the main documents that are required in addition to your application. The personal statement, letters of recommendation, your MSPE, your medical school transcript, your COMLEX and/or USMLE transcripts, and your photo. Now, as some of you may know, Juliana and I both review your application/worksheet and personal statement respectively. This class, there are 40 more of you than there were last year. So we need the draft of your personal statement and application, draft of the personal statement to Juliana, draft of your application to me by August 7th. Now, this is a fairly hard deadline. I know for some of you, if you're taking your board exams after that, maybe you got a board exam on August 21st. please let us know. Just don't be invisible. I don't want to have to hunt down students because, you know, it takes time away from reviewing applications. When I tell you from this date, August 7th until September 22nd, the only thing Juliana and I do all day, at night, and on weekend is review applications. And it's important for us to, as Juliana would say, present something that we would be proud of. And I had a family medicine workshop this week, and one thing the program director said is, if we see misspellings in your application, we will not interview you. And both Juliana and I both have editorial background, so that's why it's important. We want you to have the best application as possible. You can search for and select programs to receive your application materials, and you can do this ahead of time and save the program. So what you can do is when you want to take a break from studying, or you have time, you know, to look at the list of programs. So you may already know what programs you want to apply to because you've been trying to get rotations there. You can select the programs and save them in My ERAS so that when you have to start applying, you don't have to look for them all over again. You've got them in a saved list. You assign your personal statement, LORs, COMLEX, and or STEP report and photo to individual programs in the program section. You have to assign all of them. The application, medical school transcript, and MSP are automatically sent to all programs to which you apply. So I had a student several years ago who forgot to assign his COMLEX score report, and it was assigned like 2 weeks later. That can have an impact on how many interviews you get. So just make sure when you're assigning everything, you assign everything except for those 3 items, which will automatically get sent to all programs. This is what the dashboard looks like. I don't know how much they've changed it for this year because I haven't even seen it. I can't see it until June 4th either. But there's a couple of things I want to point out that students always seem to forget. The personal information page is the page you should have all filled out when you got your token. And then there's the biographic page. Under education, one of the categories is higher education. For those of you who have masters, whether it's a Master of Science, an MBA, an MPH, this is where you will list those degrees under higher education. One note for all EPPs. EPPs inadvertently list their prior medical degree under higher education. That is incorrect. You list your prior medical degree under medical education. So you will list NYT-COM first, and then you will list your other degree next. Then you have the category of higher education, which is where you will list any master's degrees that you've gotten, or some students may have other degrees, other undergraduate. This is where you would list it. Also, there's the category postgraduate training. This is where anyone who has a PGY 1 year, this is where you're going to list the type of training and where you're training at and who your program director is. So that is also under the same education aspect. Then there's the experience, Then there's the experience section, which we will go over shortly. Licenses and certifications. This is one area that the majority of students forget about. One of the questions is, do you have any, it's other certifications is the category, and it says, do you have any other medical or healthcare related certifications? Well, all of you do, because you've been getting certified since your first year of medical school, whether it's, you know, BLS, ACLS, HIPAA, all those certifications. So I'm going to send a list next week of all the certifications. So look through it and see which ones you've gotten so that you can have a complete list of certifications rather than only maybe 1 or 2. You are an EMT, that's a certification. So those are the things you want to know. And then the last category I want to bring up is under honors and awards. They specifically designate out Sigma, Sigma Phi, and Gold Humanism. So if you are members of either of those 2 associations, you can list that there. Then it says other honors and awards. So that would include anyone who got touch points. That would include someone who presented a research paper or a poster presentation and received an award. That would be included there. And the last one is professional memberships, which a lot of students misinterpret. You are all members of AOA, American Osteopathic Association. So that should be on all your CVs and should automatically be one of your board one of your professional organizations. Then any other association you joined, whether it's the American Anesthesiology Association, the Family Medicine Association, the Emergency Medicine Association, OBGYN, the PM&R Association, all of those get listed, whichever ones you want to list that you belong to, those get listed under professional organizations. And then here's the listing of all the documents that are required, and it'll get adjusted as you go along. So when you finish this, it'll say complete. When you upload the transcript, it'll say uploaded with a date. Okay, some of this may be a little repetitive, but I'm just going to go through it. As I said, research and contact programs if you're unsure what the requirements are or deadlines. Also assess your competitiveness and develop parallel plans. One of the things that happens is you're set on a specialty and get your scores. And the scores are really not close to what's required for that specialty. For example, one of my first years, I had a student who wanted ophthalmology, got a 400. You need to really think about parallel plans if you're in that situation, because the last thing you want to do is not match. Investigate residency programs, Careers in Medicine, Residency Explorer, and websites. Residency Explorer will be updated, I think, in July with all the 2026 information. Please understand this is the most reliable website. Residency Explorer is governed by AAMC, which also does Careers in Medicine, VSLO, ERAS, and it is the only platform that was given permission to get all 4 match results, NRP, military, San Francisco, and urology, and get scores from MBME and MBME directly. So all the data that they get is all combined, and they have a ton of new data analytics. One of the things that, for example, is the percentage of students who signaled and got an interview. The percentage of students who are DOs. Those, especially when you're applying to programs that are new in a sense that we haven't matched there or it's a new program, those are things that may help you select those programs. Make sure that each program is participating, what their requirements are, which I'll go over, and program deadlines. Okay, download the ERAS 2027 user guide. This will answer 90+% of the questions you may have as you go through this process. And then if you have any questions regarding, the CV, personal statement, or interviewing, you email Juliana. Everything else, you just email me. Almost all of you have your token, so you've got your AAMC ID number, which you're gonna need when you register for the match. So just make sure you keep it in a safe place. Create your profile, which all of you should have done. This is the one page in the application worksheet that can be updated throughout the process. So even after you certify and submit, if you have a change of address or a phone number or an email or any of that, that can be updated anytime. My suggestion for the past 2 years has been to create a separate email address for ERAS and NRP, preferably Gmail, because that's pretty much a professional email address. It also prevents important information from getting lost in your NYT email account, because I know how many emails you get in NYT. And this way, because it is imperative that you respond as quickly as possible to interviews, if you have a separate Gmail account that's just for that, when you get something, it's pretty much an interview. And it's also because you will lose your NYT email account 1 year after you graduate. So this way, anything you do when you're applying for your residency, you will have in this account, so that if you need to refer back to it, maybe you're applying for a fellowship or a job, you'll have it and you won't have it lost. Another reason it's also recommended, which happened last year, is Thalamus, which is the platform that sends out 80+% of the interviews, has suggested this as well, because a lot of medical school firewalls prevent their emails from going through. That's the last thing you want, is to have NYT's firewall prevent you from getting an interview because it blocked the Thalamus email. So this is really important to do. We will still communicate to you directly through your NYT.com email, but it's important that you have that separate email and you will use it for ERAS and your NRP match when you register. Okay, so what's new this year? Where do we begin? We're going to begin number one with SLOS. Dermatology, plastic surgery, and urology now have a required SLO. Program signal explanation, anesthesiology, plastic surgery, PM&R, and radiation oncology. What this means is that when you signal a program, so if you're applying for anesthesia at UConn and you signal that program, when you create your signal, there will be a place for you to explain why you are specifically signaling UConn for anesthesiology. It's all more work, but they're hoping that it will get you more interviews. This is the same as last year. They introduced this last year. They have specialty specific questions for anesthesia, plastic surgery, and neurological surgery, which I'll explain. But you must answer these specialty specific questions if you're applying for these specialties. Otherwise, your application will not be submitted. So certified to submit it, it will be rejected. You have to fill them out. And finally, orthopedic surgery, plastic surgery, and ENT, they turn off geographic preferences. So they don't even look at it. They don't even see what your geographic preferences are because it doesn't come through. And that's probably because they're the two out of the three specialties with 30 signals. So slow pilots, what this includes. So they're launching the partnership, as I said, with derm, urology, and plastic surgery. They're specialty specific standardized letter templates. Anyone who does a rotation in any of these specialties, the rotation, they should automatically have these forms. They're integrated directly into the letter request process, and it's now delivered through what's called the letter writer portal, which has now been changed from the letter of recommendation portal, LOR portal. It's now the letter writer portal. The goal is to improve consistency and comparability, support program decision-making, and evaluate impact for future expansion. So this is what the page with specialty-specific questions. So if you're applying to anesthesia, neurological surgery, or plastic surgery, you'll have this page under specialty questions, which is under publications. So you'll click whichever one you're applying to if it's one of the three, and you will get a pop-up. So for example, the one I'm showing you is anesthesiology. So the questions for each of the three specialties is different. But this one is anesthesiology. Describe a time when you faced adversity, how you overcame it, and any lessons learned from it. Describe a situation in which you would have made a different decision that might have led to a better outcome. And describe your ideal career as an attendant. Let me go back 1 second. Neurosurgery has describe a time when you had to make a quick decision. What did you consider when making the decision? What did you consult or not, and why? Describe a specific situation where you received negative feedback about your performance. How did you adjust your behavior? What did you learn from this situation? And describe a specific situation when your workload was overwhelming. What specific actions did you take to manage your workload, and what was the outcome? And plastic surgery has very similar questions to neurological surgery. Now, this changed last year, but I wanted to put it here and to reiterate it because the interruption and extension question now only includes 2 questions. It's based on academic or professional interruptions. So anyone who has a medical leave of absence or has an absence for medical reasons, you no longer have to detail that information in your application. I personally, I think it was a FERPA violation, and that's why they changed it. But the only 2 are academic or professional interruptions. So for academic, professional interruptions or extensions, it's have you had any academic extensions, leaves, gaps, or breaks in your education due to repeated or remediated coursework? Have you had any professional extensions, leaves, gaps, or breaks in your educational program due to professionalism, sanctions, or any other adverse actions by your medical school? The answers to these questions must be consistent with what's in your MSPE. So you're all having the opportunity to review your MSPE and check your academic history. So if you have a leave of absence listed in the MSPE academic history portion of the document, you need to make sure that it's also included in academic professional interruptions or extensions. Experiences. Now, this is, I think, the third year where we're down to 10 experiences. So it provides applicants with an opportunity to more clearly and concisely communicate to programs about who they are, their interests, and accomplishments. Experiences are from college through medical school and do not have to be medically related. So any experience you had in the past 7 years, basically, or if you have a gap year, that's fine as well. Some students include an interest or a hobby as one of their experiences because it's so significant for them. So you will highlight your most meaningful experiences. So you will provide descriptive information for up to 10 selected experiences. I will say in the 2 years they've done this, I've had nobody with less than 8 experiences. So they've ranged from 8 to 10. Majority of people have 10. You select the type of experience, the primary focus area, and the key characteristics, which I'll show on the next page. And you briefly describe activities, responsibilities, and context. You use the same format you use for your CV. You do not, you just put it in paragraph format. They're not sentences, it's the same wording. You may want to expand upon the wording that you have in your CV because you have more space to do that. Then from the selected experiences, you're going to identify up to 3 meaningful experiences. And you're going to write a short essay reflecting on the experience and explain why it was meaningful and how it influenced you. And then, if applicable, there is one question called impactful experience. And it's intended for applicants who have overcome major challenges or obstacles, family background, financial background, community setting, educational experiences, or other general life circumstances. The 2 I've most seen are cultural differences, financial issues, or a tragic circumstance with someone in the family, and they had to be a caretaker or something like that that impacts their time. Now, previously, as you saw, it said you select your experience type, primary focus area, and key characteristics. So here's the 3 categories. So the experience type is what we're normally used to: work, research, volunteer, education, military service, etc. Then there's a primary focus area and key characteristics. Not all experiences will have a primary focus area or key characteristics. So if one experience you have doesn't fit into one of these categories, don't worry about it. They're not required, but highly recommended. So I've seen a lot of applications where almost everybody has one experience that does not fit into a focus area or a key characteristic. This is what it looks like for selected experiences. So you'll see you list the organization, the experience type, the position title, dates, frequency. They've changed it to basically weekly, monthly. It's much easier. The setting, and then if you have a primary focus area, key characteristics, and then you have a 750 character limit for your description. You do not use the word I in your description. They should follow the format, that you have in your CV. Managed, so and whatever. And it's in a paragraph format rather than bullets like you have in your CV, because program director said it's much easier when they're just going right through lines and having to go straight down. This is what the 3 meaningful experiences are. You will list one of your experiences and your 300 character count description. You can use the word I in meaningful experiences because it is meaningful to you and you're describing why it's meaningful to you. And this is the impactful experience page. So they give a lot more detail. So you see family background, first generation to graduate college, financial background, low income family, work to support family growing up, work study program, and pay for college. Community setting, food scarcity, poverty, crime rate, lack of access to medical care, educational experiences, limited opportunities, limited access to advisors or mentors, or other things such as a loss of family members, serving as a caregiver while working or in school. Okay, now we're gonna get to the next section, which is where the major change was made for this application cycle. They are now calling publications scholarly work. And at the end, you'll see how you'll be able to preview your entries exactly as the program will see them. Okay, applicants will be instructed to only enter work submitted to peer review entities, as well as conference and poster presentations. So this is sort of a look as to what it's going to look like, but I have more detail on the next page. So I better go back. So the 5 categories for peer-reviewed entities, which will be in your application, you'll see it, is journal article peer-reviewed, journal abstract peer-reviewed, book chapter, then you have poster presentations and all presentations. So you, again, just like you do in experiences, you can select up to 3 meaningful works of research projects. Applicants can use scholarly collections to map how research led to various publications and presentations. And applicants' names will be bolded in the citation, and first author on a work product will be designated. Now, here you can see the drop down. So this is the scholarly work page, and here's the drop down. Here you see journal article peer-reviewed, book chapter peer-reviewed, journal abstract peer-reviewed, oral presentation, and poster presentation. Here's how you're going to enter oral and poster presentations only. It's the event you went to, when you presented, the details, if you have a URL link for the event, and a conference abstract URL. And here's how it will appear. You know, ABC conference, the date, XY conference, the date, and it'll be listed as most meaningful. It will have an asterisk. So when you select an app, and when you select something, and you have a sample book chapter, it's peer reviewed, and it's, you know, you have an author, you have the journal, you have the information. If it's one of your 3 most meaningful, it will become asterisk. The type of publication, like book chapter peer reviewed, that automatically gets entered. You don't have to worry about that. And then scholarly collection will follow, show you how that shows up. Now, the reason that they did this is because there were students who had multiple presentations from the exact same research project. So the way I've explained it to students that I've met with is that you may have presented a poster presentation at OMED. So that was in your 2nd year. Then you presented a poster presentation at your specialty specific professional organization. And then you got a journal abstract. So in other words, prior to the way they've created it now, it would be in the publication section and it would be sorted by date. Well, now what you're going to do is you're going to create a scholarly collection for those 3 items that came out of that research project, and you would come up with your scholarly collection name. Then all the presentations that come out of it would be listed under that scholarly collection. So here you have the journal article. You described it as most meaningful. It was a journal abstract, and it's part of scholarly collection A. You also had 2 presentations from the same research project. So those are listed, and you think they're also most meaningful. It was oral presentations. You were a first author, and it's also part of the same scholarly collection. Now, here's a scholarly collection where it's not most meaningful. So you have your poster presentation title, you were first author, and this is scholarly collection B. And here's your journal article, which is peer reviewed, and you were scholarly collection B. So this is how it's going to appear in your application as a grouping. And then there's, of course, the drop-down filters, which we've always had. You add the entry, you pick which one of these, you know, sample book chapter, journal abstract, oral presentation, whatever. And then you're going to manage the collections. So that way you can see what's in each collection, scholarly collection A, B, and then you'll be able to preview this just as the programs are going to see it. So here's scholarly collection. Well, here's one that's not part of a scholarly collection. So this is just individual ones. So you're going to add your articles, your posters, and you have an oral presentation that you think is most meaningful, so you can see the asterisk is highlighted on the right side. And the citation tags, so here's your, which is what's appearing underneath each article. These are the citation tags, the most meaningful, the journal article, and the name of the article. So those are all citation tags. So you're going to be able to type of entry, this is how it appears. If you select it as one of the most meaningful, it's going to be highlighted most meaningful. If you are a first author, it will be marked first author. And if it's in a scholarly collection, it will be listed to the scholarly collection that you assigned it to. You'll get all this information in an email within a week or so. So I know I'm going through it fairly quickly, but at least you get a sense of what it looks like and how you can put it together. Next is geographical preferences section. This is another important section because it's helped those students who may be in medical school in New York, but their families in California. So it provides a process for sharing geographical preferences that enhances accuracy and fairness. And it also communicates to programs that are wondering why somebody in medical school in New York is applying for programs in California. So it gives you the opportunity to provide an explanation. Okay, so you are allowed to share up to 3, you're allowed to select up to 3 geographical preference divisions. And I'll show you the census map on the next page. You write a short description to provide an explanation for each. I can tell you the majority of NYT-COM in the last 2 years has selected the Northeast, the Mid-Atlantic, and then they vary for their third selection between Southeast, which goes all the way down to Florida, or East Central, I think it's called, which is where Michigan, Ohio, and surrounding states are, because that's one of the most deal-friendly areas of the country. You're going to indicate a degree of preference from urban to rural setting, or you can indicate no preference. Once again, a short description to provide an explanation. So the categories are urban, urban, suburban, 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 rural, and rural. And then there's a standardization of how they're going to collect addresses throughout the entire application. One of the concerns that students always worry about is how this information will be shared. So if a program in New York, will they see what other selections you have? So if you indicate a preference for your division, for example, if you apply to NYU Long Island and you have a Mid-Atlantic division preference, they will see it. If you apply to NYU Long Island and you do not have Mid-Atlantic as a preference, no information is displayed. If you indicate no division preference, no division preference will be shown to schools. And if you skip the question, no information is displayed. So the one thing I want to reiterate is that if you apply to a program in a division, programs in other divisions will not know what you did. It's only within the specific division that you applied to. So here's what it looks like. You select a particular division, then only the programs located in that division into which you apply will see your response. If you select I do not have a division preference, then all programs to which you apply will see your response. If you skip the selection, then no information will be provided. So you pick your division and then you give a 1 or 2 sentence description as to why you're picking that description. And this is how the map's broken up. I guess it's east, north, central is that's comparable to Texas. So you got your Northeast, your Mid-Atlantic, your Southeast, then you've got your East, North, Central, then you've got your East, South, Central. A lot of our Jonesboro students apply. They also apply to West, South, Central, and they apply to East, North, Central. Then you have West, North, Central, Mountain, and Pacific. For those looking, Alaska and Hawaii are part of the Pacific. Just a reminder that these 3 specialties will not get any information on geographical preferences because it's been turned off. We haven't gotten the director survey for 26 yet, but just as an initial look, how are geographical preferences used? As an initial screen, before more thorough applicant review, 71.6% did not use it. As part of a holistic application view, decide whom to interview, 50.8% used it. And as a tiebreaker for deciding whom to interview, 83.5% did not use it. Program signaling. Program signals offer applicants the opportunity to express interest in a residency program at the time of application. They are becoming more and more important in deciding who to interview. This is one thing I'm going to drum into your head. Please, this is the most important part of program signals. You assign a signal to the program before you apply to the program. Because once you apply to the program, you cannot add a signal. So you're going to pull up your program, attach a signal, then apply to the program, and add all your documents. Okay, and as I said prior, what's new this year? When you assign a signal, these 4 specialties will require a brief written explanation to accompany why you signaled their specific program. You're limited to 300 to 500 characters, and it allows you to briefly personalize your signal and tell the program why you are choosing to signal them. Your explanation is only visible to the specific program you are signaling. So you may want to say that you did a rotation and what you loved about the rotation and how you connected with people and something like that. That may be an explanation why you signaled your number 1 program. I will send this out also, but here's a list of the signals. I don't believe there are any changes this year. So for example, anesthesia has 5 gold and 10 silver. Orthopedic surgery has 30. Family medicine has 5. So it varies between specialties. I do know that if you're applying to orthopedic surgery and plastic and ENT, the ones with 30 signals, when I was at ACOM, they say they will only interview the students who signal them, because if you're a program not in one of their top 30, they assume you don't even want to be there. So be very careful with your signals. One other thing about signaling, you signal every program you're interested in, even if you did a rotation. The only exception to this is emergency surgery, emergency medicine, which of course is through residency CAS. But every program, if you had a rotation and you're interested in that rotation, you send them a signal. The only exception will be if when you had your rotation, they told you not to do that, because they will automatically give you an interview. How do program directors use program signals? As a screening tool, 59.4% did not use it. As part of a holistic review to decide whom to interview, 52.8% used it. As a tiebreaker, 74.2% did not use it. So it's primarily used to decide who to interview. And that's one of the things I stated prior, that when you look in Residency Explorer, you can find for most programs what percentage of students who signaled got an interview. Okay. Now going on to what you need to do. Just a reminder, you do not have to complete the application in one sitting. However, you must save every page when completed before exiting your work. You save and print out your application, which can be viewed and printed in application format or CV format, but you submit the application format to me prior to certifying it. So use the print application format and send it by August 7th. After receiving approval, you will certify your application, but remember, once certified, it is locked and you cannot make any changes. And applicants must submit the application, because you can't do anything else until you submit it, and that's when sort of like the door opens and you can start applying to programs. And this is on the dashboard. You'll see at the bottom under the application, it says View Print Application. You click on that, it opens as a PDF file, save it on your desktop, laptop, and that's what you sent to me for review. I don't know how many times Juliana and I will say this, but please do not wait to the last date. I got 175 out of 280 last year on the date they were due. that's almost physically impossible to do. And considering this class is larger, it really will be very difficult to do. So at that point, when everybody submits on the deadline, it's going to take 2 to 4 weeks to get it back. The earlier you submit it, the quicker you get it back. Students that submitted at the end of June and July generally get them back within 24 to 48 hours. Then you've got it done. You don't have to worry about it while you're doing audition rotations. So that's what we hope some of you, many of you, most of you will do. Okay, your personal statement, email or make an appointment with Juliana for review before finalizing in my ERAS, letters of recommendation. All programs require 3 clinical letters from 3rd or 4th year clerkships. ERAS will allow you to assign 4 letters. For example, the scholars always assign Dr. Milbach, those is their 4th letter. Students who've done a lot of research with one specific mentor may get a letter from that research mentor. Some of you may have been close to your faculty mentor for your first 2 years and you want a letter from that person. That's what you can upload to your 4th spot. But just a reminder, the 3 required must be from clinical rotations. The best time to request a letter is after the middle, toward the end of the rotation, so that they know before you leave the rotation that you want a letter and can then spend that week or so, evaluating you and get more information. Specialties with standardized letters of recommendation: dermatology, emergency medicine, neurological surgery, OBGYN, ophthalmology, orthopedic surgery, ENT, PM&R, which was one that was added last year, psychiatry, and urology. Okay, you're going to create a letter request form in My ERAS to provide the LOR author with a letter ID number, and that's how they directly load it up to your portal. You can, you'll have the option of emailing or printing the letter request form that you can give to the author. Just a reminder to use the NYTCOM cover sheet so that copies can be sent and I can include it in your residency file. When we have the military workshop, I will remind all military that all letters have to come to me because I must submit them with your MSP transcript to your respective branch. Early match in programs not participating in ERAS, same thing, and that's ophthalmology and urology. Remember, you can apply to programs before all letters are uploaded to ERAS. However, this is specialty dependent. You can continuously assign letters after you have applied. Students who have questions about that, you want to have all your letters in by slot 5. Which ends October 18th, so you want letters in by November 1st. But there are some specialties that you need to have everything in by the time you apply, and that's because they have universal release dates in October. So they basically have 2 or 3 weeks to review all your documents, and we'll go over that when we have the specialty meetings. Okay, this is the new process. Well, this is the new look for how you are going to create letter requests. You'll need to provide the author name, email, specialty to which the letter will be assigned. Now, if you are only getting 1 letter from a physician, you can just use general. The reason they want specifically a specialty letter is if you are applying, let's say, anesthesia and PM&R, and Dr. Smith is writing both letters, this is a way for you to list anesthesia as one specialty and PM&R as the other specialty, so you send the correct letter to the correct program. Letter type, standardized, which is the SLOS, or narrative, which is a text letter. Is the person a department chair? Yes or no? That's the same we always have. And waiver of right to review, generally, you say you do not want to review your letter. Here's what the overview will look like. Applicants, you'll see the status of your request in the letter of recommendation section. It's just a different look from what you're used to, but it'll have the author, the standardized letter label, so it's either standardized or narrative, the specialty designated by the applicant, and then the request status. So it'll say either confirmed for upload, which is blue generally, which means that you have sent a letter request form to the physician and waiting for it to be uploaded. And then once it's uploaded, it'll turn green. To confirm and send a letter request, applicants can select a letter from this screen using the checkboxes to the left of the letters. That's how you do that. After the request is created, applicants need to confirm the request. So you can select a letter from the dashboard, like I just, you check the box in front of the letter, and then you click confirm. When they do, you'll see a confirmation screen that shows them the summary of choices they selected prior to confirm the letter. So you can see here, I don't know if my pointer's showing, but you can see download letter request or send letter request. So that's, you have the option of downloading a form because you want to personally bring it with you when you're speaking with the physician, or you are sending the letter request form because you spoke to them about it already, and you just have to send it. You will also have to reconfirm your password before it gets sent. All right. MSPE, as you know, is a comprehensive assessment of your medical school performance through your third year of medical school. It follows AAMC guidelines and their template, and they will be released to programs on September 23rd. I know many of you have already had your meetings with either Daniela or Alana, so just make sure you review yours before you apply. Medical school transcripts. We will upload it directly to ERAS, and it gets automatically sent to each program to which you apply. Please go to My NYT by August 1st to review your transcript and be sure there are no discrepancies for your first 3 years, as it will delay uploading. If you are missing a clerkship grade by August 1st, it means I have to contact clinical ed, and they may have to contact the program because they didn't provide your evaluation yet so that a grade can be included. So the sooner that this is cleared and you see all of your first and second years have all been approved, it's your third years where you have students missing clerkship grades, and that's the prior, because we cannot upload if you don't have all your grades. Comlex score report, you request and authorize the transmission in My ERAS. It's a drop-down menu, so it's not that hard. You just got to remember that if you get Comlex 2 results after you apply, you've got to go back in there and re-request an updated report. USMLE transcript. This is new this year. Another new item. Why don't they? For this year, the FSMB will assume responsibility for your USMLE transcript processing from the NBME. So to request a USMLE transcript, you will create an FSMB account. You will request what is that? Oh, you request transcripts. You request transcripts through the FSMB portal. USMLE transcript fees will be slightly lower, so they'll be $70. You select ERAS as the destination for transcripts, and then the transcripts will be attached to applications through My ERAS. And I have the fuller directions, and you'll also get that. Photo, if you have not had your photo taken on campus, these are the requirements for your photo. We will have additional dates in June. I would like to respectfully request that if you can't make your appointment, can you please, because now that they're using Sign in Genius, just cancel it. There were so many students who had appointments last Thursday and did not show up. And ATG is doing us a favor. And it took a lot of time for them to set up for 2 full days of 2 sessions each. And to have nobody show up at one of those sessions is just, in my opinion, very disrespectful to Steve and his staff. Okay, just to reiterate, you create and upload your application, personal statements, and photo. Letter writers will upload directly to the portal. We will upload your MSP and transcript, and not from your designated office, but from outside agencies, you'll get your Comlex and your STEP transcript. STEP is optional depending on whether you are including it or not. Once your application has been approved, you can select your programs, assign your personal statement, LORs, Comlex score report, transcript, and photo to programs. You pay for programs selected within costs, and programs start downloading September 24th. Now I'm just going to briefly talk about the match. The match is an entirely separate website and platform for ERAS. ERAS is how you're going to transmit everything you need to the programs you're applying to. Okay? The match is where you're going to rank your programs. That's all you do in the match, is you are going to rank your programs. So NRMP schedule is that they will open September 15th. You have to register no later than January 29th. Ranking will open February 1st. The final date to rank will be March 3rd. March 15th is when the Monday of Soap Week, when you find out whether or not you matched. That week is soap, and then you'll find out where on March 19th. I need to let everybody know that, once again, if you do not have a passing COMLEX 2 score by February 1st, you will be pulled from the match. So please make sure. And for those of you, there are a large number of you who have yet to have a COMLEX 1 score. You need to seriously think about making sure that you work with your academic enrichment specialist once you get your COMLEX 1 score to determine what's the best course of action for you, so that you can take COMLEX 2 and pass it with a good score in an appropriate time frame. And here's how you register for NRMP, www.nrmp.org. Of course, not until September 15th. I will send out a reminder. That's $85. And if your couple's matching, it's $45 additional each. And once again, payment plans. If you have to SOAP, eligible applicants must be able to start a GME on July 1st. You can only apply to unfilled programs during match week and can only accept positions through SOAP. Offers not accepted or rejected will expire within the time allotted slot. I will not even go into ranking. I will do a webinar on ranking in January, and I will do a webinar on SOAP in March. So the only thing I need you to do for ranking is to register for the match. OBGYN and emergency medicine are following, well, they're not anymore, okay? OBG wants applications in by September 17th. Emergency medicine is same as ERAS. I will have a separate meeting for those of you who told me that you were applying OB and EM in mid-June, because we haven't had the webinar as advisors yet to know how residency CAS is going to look or what's required this year. Military, contact your branch. Generally, applications and backup materials are due by October 15th, and they're reviewed in early November, and this match this year is December 9th. San Francisco match, here's the link for San Francisco. For those of you, if you're applying ophthalmology, it's still set for the 26th cycle. I looked yesterday, so it probably won't be in sometime June until it's updated for the 27 match. Urology, this is the link for the urology match. Once again, you register online, but for urology, you apply through ERAS. The only difference with urology is that you will have an early deadline for when you get your results. The deadline in the deadline, I think it's not the deadline was early December for application for when they finished interviews, but the results this past year came the 1st and 2nd of February for ophthalmology and urology respectively. And just an overview of fees, so that you know what's going on. Fees are based on the number of programs you apply to, and they can be paid online. You'll get an invoice after you apply and after you release your score reports, etc. 1 to 30 programs is $11 per application, and 31 and over is $30 per application. This is a new fee structure they developed last year. It used to be 1 to 10, 11 to 20, 21 to 30. So they've just basically developed a fee structure for 2 sets of numbers. The match is $85. Late fee, I will remind everybody if they haven't registered in an appropriate time, so that you don't have to pay the late fee. You pay enough money as it is here. You don't need to pay late fees on top of everything. And then again, additional $45 for couples. Rank order list submission is 1 to 20 on the rank list. There's no charge. Once it's over 20, it's $30 per program. USMLE, I mentioned $70, COMLEX $80. It's a flat fee. So even if you have to send your scores a second time or a third time, there's no additional charge. And of course, we've already charged you enough, so I'm not charging you for your transcript or MSPE. So in closing, I just want to talk about a couple of common mistakes. Not applying to enough programs. If you are on the borderline with your scores for your specialty, you need to apply more broadly. It's important that you be very subjective about your competitiveness. Not applying to a combination of programs. Yes, you have that dream program, but you really should have most of your programs in the middle range and some in safety. If your scores do not coincide at all with specialties, you really need to schedule a meeting with me and rethink this. I know I get a lot of phone calls when those STEP scores come out in July because the scores are not what you need for your specialty, but we do come up with a plan, and I will never tell anybody not to apply to something that they want. It's just I make sure you have a solid foundation so that if you don't get your initial specialty, you at least match. Make sure you take geographical restrictions into setting. Will you enjoy the setting? Will you enjoy living there for 3 to 7 years, depending on your specialty? Make sure you apply broadly and to enough PGY1 years. The one change that I want to tell everyone about that happened in February is that when you match to a residency program, GME funding is for the length of that residency program. So if you apply for pediatrics, you're going to get residency funding for 3 years. If you apply for anesthesiology and match, you're going to get residency funding for 4 years. Now, there's really 2 primary types of PGY1s most students apply to, and that's transitional years and preliminary medicine. Some specialties like neurology require a preliminary medicine year 1. If you have the option, apply for transitional years. Apply for both, but lean heavily on transitional years because they made the decision this year that transitional years do not affect funding. So I have a number of students because I will tell you this year, SOAP was a nightmare. There have been no anesthesia positions in SOAP since 2021. This year, there were no OB, ortho, derm, or PM&R positions in SOAP. So if you're in one of those advanced specialties and you match your preliminary medicine PGY1 year, you've already used 1 year of funding. So that means if then you're applying for, let's say you change your one from anesthesia to emergency medicine, then they would have to find funding for the 3rd year of your residency. When you have a transitional year, it does not affect your funding at all. So it's actually like a freebie year. So make sure you apply to enough of those programs so that if you don't match your advanced specialty, you do match PGY1. And applying and not having a parallel plan, unless you're applying for family medicine and internal medicine, is not the best option. This is, I started doing this when we had the merger. I can tell you now, almost every osteopathic medical school has their students dual applying. A lot of it because of the bias against DOs. I was shocked when I found out that when I was at the NRP match, 76.2 or 9% of ENT programs do not rank a DO student. 15.9% of OBGYN programs do not rank a DO student. 15.2% of radiology programs do not rank a DO student. So this is what you're up against. And that's why having a parallel plan is important. If you get enough interviews in your primary specialty, okay, then you don't have to accept parallel plan interviews. But if you, for example, are applying anesthesia and you have 5 interviews and you have no parallel plan, the chances of matching with 5 interviews is very low. So I always say to students, pick another specialty. So wouldn't you rather match into a family medicine program that you like versus one in Idaho? Because you wouldn't get down to your parallel plan unless you did not match your primary specialty. So that's something to think about. Almost the entire class has met with me. There are those of you who have yet to have your required 3rd year meeting with me, so I will be hunting you down. But most of them know that it's whether or not it's important to have a parallel plan. As I said, your NYT email is the official mode of communication from us to you, but you can use your Gmail for ERAS and NRP. Make sure you have deadlines on a to-do list or on your calendar so you don't miss any of them. Common, make an Excel sheet with all the important information about programs you apply to. I've seen many multicolored specialty, specific Excel sheets. Because you're looking at, is housing included? Do they pay for my meals? What kind of professional development I get? Do they pay for me to go to conferences? Where are they located? Those types of categories. Research and contact programs just to make sure you know what dates are, the deadline dates are. If you have a failure in any of your reports and have yet to retake, that's the important part. Have yet to retake, just reach out to me because I want to see when you're going to be retaking it. When's the best time to release the scores? We as an institution don't like your last score to be a failure. So we always want it to be a pass. Once again, score reports are not be transmitted until you apply to the program. You can add programs and update assignments at any time. And then check the status of your application, programs applied to. Keep your personal information current. Register for the matches, NRP San Francisco Military Urology. Check your email and message center daily, and keep good records. And finally, you must complete your application worksheet and personal statement by August 7th. Take breaks during dedicated study. A 5-minute break to complete the education section. Oh, that should be section. Or another for the license section. You know, you can do it periodically when, okay, I'm going to go get a cup of coffee. Let me take a break and fill out this part of it. Also takes your mind away from studying for 5 or 10 minutes, which is important because if you study consistently, you're going to forget what you learned at the beginning of the day. And then, of course, Julianne and I are the only two that are involved in the residency process. So depending on what, area you're looking into, you email us. And please, if you're not sure, do not send one email to Juliana and the exact same email to me. Just put both of us in one email. We both know what each of us is responsible for, and it just takes time away from reviewing applications because Juliana will say to me, are you answering this? And I'll say to her, no, you answer it. It just put both of us in it. It'll make, or she'll say, I got an email from this person. I'm like, so did I, and I already responded. So just please be respectful of our time, and we each, know who does what. And then, of course, Danielle for the MSPEs. So that is my portion of the presentation. I am going to let Juliana take over, and then we will do Q&As after Juliana is done.
Hi, everyone. Just bear with me as I share my screen. Okay, so I am looking forward to helping everyone through the process of writing their personal statement this cycle. This is my favorite part of my job, and one of my goals every cycle is to help all of you see that the process of writing a personal statement, which can seem intimidating initially, is actually something that can be rather fun, rather creative, and rather enjoyable. And one of the things that I'm most proud of at the end of every cycle is when a student says to me, wow, I was like really scared about my personal statement in the beginning and I didn't know where to start, but it ended up being, fun and creative and even cathartic. So I hope that is going to be the case for all of you. And I look forward to working closely with each of you on that, on that process. This slide here, this is a list of quotes that I've compiled over the years of things that students have actually said to me around this time of year when this cycle is getting started and you have to think about your personal statement. I hear many, many times things like, I don't like to write. I don't like writing about myself. I'm having trouble getting started. I have a draft, but I don't think it's any good. I know what I want to say. I just don't know how to put it into words. Now, I know for many of you, writing is something that can be challenging or intimidating. Certainly not all of you, but for some of you, it is. I hear that a lot. I've been doing this 11 years, and these are, common phrases that I hear at this time of year. And I completely understand that. And I would just encourage you to let all of those go and let me help you through the process. If you meet me halfway with your best attempt at a draft in a timely manner, meaning that August 7th deadline, which Deb mentioned, I will ensure that you have a statement that you will be proud of. And like Deb said, she and I do not approve your documents, me, the personal statement, Deb, the application, unless we are confident that if we were in your shoes applying for residency, that these are products that we would put forth to program directors. When you send me the draft of your personal statement, it can be rough. When you send me the draft by August 7th, it doesn't have to be perfect. As long as I have the meat and the substance and the general idea of what you want to convey, my strength is kind of streamlining it and making it concise, easy to read, neat and clean, so to speak. So all you need to do is get me that draft, and I will go through it in great detail and make sure that it's ready for your application in September. Just some basics about the personal statement. Every year, I find that many students are surprised that the personal statement is not that long. It only has to be a page. I have found through the years that students think, for some reason, that the personal statement has to be like this, like multi-page dissertation, master's thesis, and it doesn't. It's one page. That's what program directors are expecting. It's a one-page essay, simple, straightforward, and to the point, outlining your motivating interests and your strengths as they relate to becoming a successful resident in your chosen specialty. So when you all applied to medical school, you wrote about why you want to become a doctor, what inspired you to become a physician. Now for residency, you're writing about what has inspired you to apply to become a resident in OBGYN or radiology or PM&R. It's an opportunity to introduce yourself to the selection committee by emphasizing your unique strengths, your enthusiasm, your characteristics, your personality. It can provide an overview of who you are and what you will bring to the program. So you want to think about when you're, kind of pondering what you want to write about for the CV, who is the person behind the CV, what makes you different, what sets you apart, providing information about something that is not obvious in other aspects of your application. So program directors are going to have your transcript and your ERAS application and your MSPE and your board scores. So ask yourself, what is something that program directors wouldn't know about me based on those aspects of the application? So the personal statement should be completely distinct. And it should provide a common topic for conversation during interviews. And this is huge. Whatever you decide you're going to write about in the personal statement is something that you want to be comfortable talking about during interviews. Because I can guarantee, and again, doing this 11 years and students reporting back to me during the interview process, they always tell me that the topic that they wrote about in their personal statement becomes a topic of conversation during the interview. The program directors will usually say, oh, in your personal statement, you mentioned, your love of Indian classical dance. Tell me more about that. So whatever it is you write about, just make sure it's something that you are happy, enthusiastic, comfortable, confident talking about in interviews. And this is a quote that I included in here from an email, class of 2021 student who said, podcasts were brought up in almost every single interview I had, which made my conversation so enjoyable. So a student several years back wrote about her passion for podcasts, and this was something that program directors asked about. And whatever the topic is that you choose, it does end up making your interviews more fun, more enjoyable, because program directors want to know you beyond who you are as a medical student, and that topic in your personal statement is often how they're going to do that. And students often tell me that makes the interview, more fun. So think about something that you would want to, chat with a program director about. Just some basics for getting started with the personal statement. Simple. You just want to start in Microsoft Word, a blank Microsoft Word document, no templates or anything fancy, just setting your margins to standard margin size, 1/2 inch to 1 inch all around, standard font. There are many fonts that are, considered, standard and appropriate, Times Roman, Garamond, Arial, doesn't really matter. Standard font size, somewhere between 10 and 12 point in size, single spaced. If well written, short and sweet, has much more impact than long and wordy. And if you put yourselves in the shoes of a program director who has to read hundreds, if not thousands, of personal statements, you are going to want to read a statement that gets right to the point versus one that is convoluted, too detail-oriented, too confusing. So my big piece of advice every cycle is to cut the fluff, cut what is not imperative, cut what is not going to tell the program director enough about you. And this is the main thing that I will help all of you with, with your personal statement. When you send me that draft, my strength is kind of cutting out the extraneous, what is not necessary. Because program directors have to, out of necessity, read these in a short amount of time. Attention spans are short. They don't have much time. So your personal statement has to get right to the point, and it has to get right to the point very quickly. In terms of length of the personal statement, and this is probably the number one question, that I get every year. How long should my personal statement be? Your personal statement is relatively brief. It's the equivalent to a page in Microsoft Word, which is somewhere between 500 and 600 words. I find every year that I've been doing this that students are sometimes surprised that it's that short. Students, for some reason, think that a personal statement is this like long dissertation or master's level thesis or, pages upon pages. It's not. A program director is not going to read that much. They are going to read somewhere around 500 to 600 words. Can it be 800 words? Yes. Can it be 460, 72 words? Yes. And I will work with each of you one-on-one to determine the best length for you. But somewhere in that 500 to 700, 600 word mark, is the ideal length. This is not a rule that's written anywhere. This is not a requirement, but I can assure you with confidence, based on my experience, that that is an absolutely effective length for a personal statement. When you start drafting your personal statement, I want everyone to keep in mind some of these don'ts. And when you send me the draft of your personal statement for my editing, if I see any of these, I will just chop them out. So let's not make more work for ourselves. Keep these in mind and just don't put them in your drafts. Number one, when you're writing your personal statement, you don't have to define the specialty. The program director who's reading your statement is a professional in that area of medicine. They know what that area of medicine is all about. So you don't need to say, for example, EM is fast-paced and unpredictable, or an anesthesiologist needs to establish quick rapport to calm anxious patients. Those are obvious aspects of these specialties that program directors know. They assume you know those aspects of the specialty. No reason to waste lines in your personal statement telling them those things about the specialty. Number two, you don't want to write that much, if at all, about how you love or enjoy aspects of the specialty. Often I see personal statement drafts that are like, I like to call love letters to the specialty, where the student is gushing about how much they love PM&R or radiology or internal medicine. You don't need to do that. It's understood that if you're applying to this specialty, you are passionate about it. So obvious statements like, I've always loved children, therefore pediatrics is the perfect fit for me, or I'm passionate about women's health, so I'm pursuing OB-GYN, are super obvious, and they don't necessarily need to be in there. They don't, add. And three, last but not least, don't write your statement like a case report. And I cannot tell you how many times I see this year after year. And please do not do this, because again, if I see a draft that reads like a case report, I'm just going to chop out those lines. You do not need to tell the program director who's reading your statement about cases that you've encountered. Any program director or assistant program director who's reading your statement knows that all of you on your rotations have encountered interesting patients, fascinating patients, with unique diagnoses. For example, Mrs. X presented to the family medicine clinic with symptoms of blah, blah, blah. Or noticing that Mr. Y's A1C was elevated, I discussed with him the importance of dietary modifications to reduce his blood sugar. Things like that that are obvious about the specialty and describe specific patients that you've encountered are not necessary. When you go on interviews, program directors will ask you, tell me about an interesting case you encountered. Tell me about a challenging case you encountered. You can talk about interesting cases on your interviews, and it's understood that all of you are out there now on rotations and you're all encountering interesting patients and learning really cool things. Save those for the interview. You don't need to put those in your personal statement. The personal statement is about you. This is an article that a student years ago sent me from a program director who wrote about personal statements. And I decided to add it to the PowerPoint because it really sums up, a key point that the majority of personal statements tend to be excruciatingly boring. You do not want a boring personal statement. It almost doesn't matter what you write about in your personal statement, as long as you're writing about something that's interesting and unique and helps you to stand out. And again, this is direct from this essay from this particular program director. There's little that's personal about personal statements. The majority of things they've told me is that they're very much like 90% of the other candidates for my program. So in your personal statement, you want to bring yourself to life. The program director needs to find out something, anything that describes you uniquely as an individual. And again, this is this particular program director writing this. Encourage them to share their love of dogs, their fear of clowns, their culinary successes, their camping nightmares. I want to hear from the candidate who won the World Clogging Championships at the age of 12, or the one who worked hard at becoming a varsity football player, but ended up handing out towels on the bench. These are the ones that demonstrate a feature, key to being a doctor, humanity. How else are we, program directors, to know about this side of our candidates, if not for their personal statement? So when you're reflecting about what to write about, really give some deep thought to what makes you you, what sets you apart from other applicants. This is a list, an actual list of topics that previous students have written about through the years. And this is just a sampling. And look at the variety here. Students have written about their love of tennis, origami, engineering, scouting, wrestling, virtual reality, lifeguarding, knitting, sewing, singing, teaching, tutoring. And I know from having reviewed all of your CVs that you all have very specialized interests that are unique from your interest in medicine, unique from being a medical student. And again, from 11 years of doing this, I can assure you that these are the type of topics that program directors are going to enjoy reading about, and the type of topics that are going to, to set you apart. And I can tell you that these themes, can be related to how you're going to function as a first-year resident. Many of you who have participated in these, hobbies and these extracurriculars, whether it be athletics or dramatics or, music, instrumental, you have, developed skills like resilience, discipline, overcoming obstacles, attention to detail, interpersonal communication, all attributes that program directors are going to want you to have as a first-year resident. So that's what you want to write about. You want to select a theme that best reflects who you are. You don't want to choose a theme just because it sounds impressive. And whatever the topic is, remember that you will discuss it during all or most of your interviews. So if there is a topic, and I come across this year after year, that you are going to be emotional while discussing, or you think you might, tear up or during the interview or cry, that's not something you want to write about. You want to write about something that you can comfortably, calmly, and confidently describe during the interview, to gather the reader's attention. And one of the most important things is catching the reader's attention with a bold opening. Again, program directors are going to read hundreds, if not thousands, of these personal statements. And you want that first line of your personal statement to pull the reader in and compel them to keep reading. It's really that first line as they're going through this that's going to say, you know what, I want to keep reading this statement versus skipping over it and going to the next applicant. So you don't want your first line to be something like, I am pursuing family medicine because blah, blah, blah. You want it to be something more dynamic, like, and these are just examples. What's wrong with her? I asked my father with the candor of a curious child. Or the plane rattled wildly. Or I never would have imagined that I would find my calling while driving through a flooded street in rural El Salvador to reach a clinic full of patients. You want to begin and end your statement in a positive, strong, and engaging manner. And the introduction and conclusion you want to tie together. So whatever it is you open with, you want to tie the ending back in with that beginning. It can be a word, it can be a phrase, it doesn't matter, but you want them to be like bookends. So however you open it, you want to make a reference, even if it's brief, back to the beginning of that of your statement. Members of previous classes who have wrote outstanding statements have given me permission to show excerpts to spark ideas. And these are just, a few examples. These sentences are simply intended to provide you a sense of the type of topics that you can write about and, the type of, kind of cadence that you want the personal statement to have. I won't read all of these, but I'll just, I'll recite to you like the middle one, a creative endeavor. So this was a student who wrote about like songwriting. Similar to how I try to convey a song's message to the audience, I can effectively relay information by forming a relationship built on trust and empathy. I look forward to implementing the performance skills I have acquired to the clinical environment because, just as the stage serves as a dynamic platform for sharing emotions through song, medicine is a medium for strong doctor-patient relationships. So the best personal statements, in my experience, are the ones that take something that's like outside of the realm of medicine and relate it to how you're going to be a strong doctor, a strong first year, intern. And again, this is something that I will help all of you with, but just something that I want everybody to think about, preliminarily as you start pondering what you want your personal statement to be about. In terms of getting started writing your personal statement, you can brainstorm with me. Now, a brainstorming session with me is absolutely not mandatory. It's not required because I know that many of you know confidently what you want to write about, and that's great. Some of you may struggle with, what am I going to write about? Like, what should my topic be? If that's the case for you, you can schedule an appointment with me. I have probably upwards of a couple of hundreds of statements from students from previous classes who have agreed to share with me samples of their personal statements that I can show you via Zoom. And I know from previous experience that students who have scheduled brainstorming sessions with me and review previous statements from other classes get a really good idea of what a statement should entail. Again, not required because I know that many of you have a strong idea of what you want to write about. And if that's the case, that's great. If you don't, feel free to schedule an appointment with me. I can share samples with you. I can't email out the samples. You have to schedule a one-on-one appointment because I have assured the previous students who have shared these samples with me that they will not be shared with, shared widely, that they are just going to be read by students, one-on-one with me in a Zoom session. The other option is to attend a virtual brainstorming session. I will be holding on June 24th and July 9th a group brainstorming session. This is another option in addition to a one-on-one appointment with me. I hold every cycle 2 group brainstorming sessions. And these can actually be kind of fun where if you are comfortable sharing your thoughts and ideas with other students and bouncing your ideas off other students, we come together and kind of, talk about what appropriate ideas might be. June 24th and July 9th, I will send shortly an email to everybody with a link to register for those if you're interested. Those brainstorming sessions, though, are more so for those of you who are comfortable in a group setting. I know not everybody is comfortable in a group setting sharing your ideas, but if you are, I have found that these sessions, the group sessions, are very successful in terms of, all of you kind of sharing your ideas with one another and encouraging one another and helping one another come up with ideas. Again, I will send out an email in the next week or so about those dates. If not, a one-on-one session with me, if you would like, is great, and we can, go through some of the samples I have. I have statements that students have agreed to share with me, previous students over the years. I have a couple hundred samples that represent like all different specialties that when we meet over Zoom, you can, I can screen share with you and you can read. And students who have done these brainstorming sessions do tell me that it's helped them to, develop a better idea of what a personal statement is about and, what they might want to write about. And my goal is when you have that one-on-one session with me, we don't get off that session until you say to me, Juliana, I think I know what I'm going to write about, and I'm going to go forward with that idea. So again, not a requirement by any means, because I know, like there's 300 plus of you and, everybody, varies. But for those of you who might be struggling with an idea, just reach out to me and we'll schedule that. Something that I started suggesting a few years ago that students have told me is so helpful is just start writing stream of consciousness, because I know writing, can be challenging, especially writing about yourself and, your interests and your goals. So if that's you, if that's something you struggle with, just start writing in a stream of consciousness fashion. Don't worry about anything. Don't worry about grammar. Don't worry about punctuation. Don't worry about any of those things. Just worry about putting your thoughts on paper and write as if you're writing in a journal. Write as if you're writing in a personal diary. And that will often help you form just like a nice draft. And like I said a few minutes ago, as long as I have just like, your ideas, I can help you put them together in like a fluid manner. Again, for students who are really having a hard time, setting a timer for 30 minutes and writing without stopping can be helpful. I have suggested this for a few years now, and I cannot tell you how many times students have said, wow, Juliana, that really helped me. Set that timer, start writing without regard to anything other than, getting words out, talking about yourself, talking about the specialty, talking about why it's important to you, talking about your interests, talking about what you can bring to it. And often that will form the basis of a strong draft. And then once I have that strong draft, I can review it and make it, fluid and concise and flow and all of those things. And once you have that draft, all you have to do is email it to me. I'll edit it, I'll go through it in detail, I'll send it back to you, I'll give you suggestions, and we can go back and forth as many times as is necessary. And this is a question I get year after year. Like, how many times can I communicate with you about my draft? As many times as you need. As long as I get it by August 7th, like Deb said, the deadline for, for her applications and my personal statement, we can go back and forth as many times as you need so that you have a draft that you are proud of. Here's my email address. You just send it as a Microsoft Word document. I go through it in detail. I make what edits I think are necessary. I send it back to you with suggestions, and we go back and forth. And I can tell you, again, from doing this for 11 years, students who get this out of the way early, get the personal statement out of the way early, say, wow, this is something that I was able to get done, put aside, and not think about until September, when I upload it. Just a note here about being fair to all students. Like Deb said, she is one person reviewing all of the applications in great detail. I am only one person reviewing all of the personal statements in detail. So you just want to be sure that you abide by that August 7th deadline in getting us your drafts. Now, as Deb mentioned, many of you will be applying for parallel plans, secondary specialties. Some of you will maybe even be applying for 3 specialties and need, several personal statements, and that's fine. But I would just ask you that you will please submit them together by the deadline. So by August 7th, if you're applying for example, to family medicine, internal medicine, and PM&R, that all three of those drafts of your personal statement come to me by the deadline of August 7th. Because Deb and I want to ensure that all of you have received a detailed revision of your personal statement, of your application. By that, deadline, we want to be sure that we can be able to help as many of you as possible, to have everything finalized by your September, deadline. So ensuring that you adhere to that August 7th deadline is really important for both of us. In terms of the personal statement, a phenomenon that I have seen over the past several years has made me put this slide in my presentation. Often what happens is, by that, September deadline, when you're ready to upload the application, students tend to panic and worry about their personal statement. And is it going to be effective enough? So I end up getting inundated with final requests right up against that deadline saying things like, and I didn't make these up. These are actual statements that I've heard from previous students. I decided that I didn't like my topic, so I rewrote my statement. Can you look at it again? And again, this is September 21st, 22nd, right before it's due to be uploaded. My sister said my statement wasn't exciting enough, so I changed it. Can you read it again? Dr. So-and-so, insert whoever, faculty member, suggested I should elaborate on whatever it might be. So I included it at the end of my statement. Please edit what I added. My resident thinks I should incorporate my pharmacology background, so I did that. Can you review it again, Juliana? I showed my statement to, and this one is a little bit of an exaggeration, but I've heard things along these lines. I showed my statement to 14 family members at a wedding last weekend, so I rewrote it incorporating the recommendations. Can you tell me what you think? I understand the need to ask for others' feedback on personal statements, but I would advise you to be careful of two things. Not everyone understands exactly what should go into, a personal statement, for residency. So be careful who you trust with that advice. But if you are going to solicit the advice of others, and I understand, the need to do so, please just do that before you send me the personal statement on August 7th. Because if you're reworking your personal statement, in late September, I can't promise you that I'm going to be able to get back to you with a detailed revision, and I don't want to be, I don't want to have to tell you that I can't get back to you with a detailed revision. So just whatever advice you plan to solicit from friends, family members, faculty members, preceptors, just please do all of that before you send me that initial revision on August 7th. Because there is that tendency to second guess unnecessarily at the last minute. I don't recommend that anybody do that. But if you are going to ask for others' feedback, do it up front, do it now. Because I can't promise that I'm going to be able to accommodate those requests on a last minute basis. So I thank everybody for their understanding, and I really do look forward to working with all of you on your personal statement. So that's all I have. We probably have a lot of questions to get to.
Juliana, I just want to interrupt because I did forget to say one thing that came out of my ACOM Residency Council. I know that a number of you may or may not reach out to various websites, Reddit, organizations that may help with writing, etc. You need to be very careful what they advise you. I don't care which platform it is. There is currently a number of platforms that are being addressed by ACOM because the information they're giving out is incorrect. I had a student last year that emailed me and said to me, Deb, what do we do now with OBGYN that we have no more signals? And I wrote back and I said, what do you mean you have no more signals? And I asked her, where did you find out that information? And she told me, and I will not share that. And I said, that is incorrect information because OBGYN has gold and silver signals. That's why I'm concerned sometimes when you reach out and you talk to someone who hasn't gone through this process in 15 years. You reach out to, there's various people trying to make money off of you, saying they know more than we do. And in some cases, there are some instances, maybe, yes. The one thing I will say is the information that we get is not shared with any outside agency. So unless they're somehow getting the information from programs or students or whatever, this stuff is only shared with medical school advisors. So that's why this presentation was a little bit longer, because they've made so many changes. They don't make the information is not always public. So just be very careful. If you have a question that something doesn't make sense, just email us. We'll tell you if it's right or wrong. I just don't want anyone to get incorrect information and have it affect their residency application. Okay, that being said, that was my one speech for the day. Okay, so let's go to Q&A and we'll start at the beginning. Does submitting your application earlier have a positive impact on a student's ability to match? Absolutely not. As I stated earlier, whether you submit it the day ERAS opens for applications, which you have to have your application approved, or the last day they're due, everyone will have the exact same date on their application. So it's no first come, first served. Are our letters supposed to be emailed to Deb, or are the letter writers supposed to upload? Letter writers are required to upload them to ERAS. Letters, you are also asked to have letters sent here to me, because many programs in VSLO required letters of recommendation, and the only way those letters could be uploaded to VSLO was if I had copies. Do expired licenses count for certifications? For example, EMT license, which has not been renewed. You can list it as a license, you just don't put any dates next to it. That's what students in the past have done. Do scholarships count under awards? If they are financial scholarships, then no. Financial scholarships don't get counted, but if it was an academic scholarship or, something else like that, that does count. Can a particular rotation count as an experience, or experiences? No, rotations are not included in experience section. It's all co-curricular activities, basically. If you have research that has been submitted to a journal and still pending under review, can you list that, or should you wait until it's possibly published before submitting? No, what you would do is you would list it in the experience section where you describe the research experience. So if you, and this happens a lot because a lot of you have that summer project from your first year and stuff generally doesn't get published until your fourth year. What you do is you would list the research project as an experience and then have a separate paragraph underneath your description of the experience and state that this research project has been submitted to whatever journal it is or whatever and is pending approval. OBGYN will need to complete that. Yes, OBGYN and EM applicants will need to complete this. The only thing you don't do is certify and submit it. You save it. The last thing you want to do is, if you are an OB or an EM applicant and do not match, is have to find all your letter writers and everybody else and get all that stuff put into your application ERAS in one day. This way it's already there, so that if you didn't match, when you have to apply to programs on that first day, Monday, you have everything ready to go and you just have to apply. If you're dual applying, you get program signals for each specialty. So if you're applying family, you get 5, and you're applying another specialty that may have, like ortho, that has 30, you would get 5 for family and 30 for ortho, because you're assigning them to the actual program. The case presentations and lectures given during rounds on or student lectures on rotations, do those get listed? No, anything that's part of your academic curriculum, you generally do not include in your application. For applying to a specialty with gold and silver, does it count against us to give a program a silver signal instead of gold? No, it doesn't. How long after submitting applications do you signal? Once again, as I stated, and I stressed it and tried to stress it, you attach your signal to your program before you apply to it. You do not, if you submit your application without attaching a signal to a program, you cannot go back and signal the program. Letters written by chair of the Department of Medicine at your school's a requirement for a program that I'm looking at. Would you at? Okay. I'm going to resend this because a lot of people can't seem to find it. But when I met with you, in July and sent an email out sometime in the fall, I listed the options for a chair of medicine. This position, this requirement was created for MD schools. DO schools do not have a chair of medicine, so there are positions that you can have that meet the requirements, such as a program director, a clerkship coordinator, an associate program director, a chair of a subspecialty like a chief of cardiology, a director of hospitals medicine. I will resend that slide out to everybody so you know who requires that. Almost every student for internal or OB that needs a chair letter gets it in their 4th year from either doing a sub-I or a subspecialty. For PM&R, you need 3 required letters. Generally, you want 2 from PM&R, 1 which must be, it's highly recommended to have a SLO. They aren't requiring it yet. And then a narrative letter, and your 3rd letter can be from any specialty. Do applicants with regional preference get priority over applicants without them? You'd have to look at the specific programs in Residency Explorer because it will tell you, it will answer that question. When is the latest slot you can request a letter of recommendation in 4th year for specialties like anesthesia, PM&R, neuro? Slot 5, you have to have letters uploaded by November 1st. Do the LOR writers have to send the letter to your office through physical? No, they can just email it. My email is, everybody emails them to me. I have so many letters from the 3rd year, from your class, from 3rd year students. They just email it to me and then I put it in your file. So if you need it for anything, it's there. If we are still finishing our master's program, will be completed May 2027. So we should still add it in the application. Yes. If you are a second author on a paper that you work the most on, but a resident may have been given first author, can you still check up? No, because if they decide to look at the document, they'll see you're not a first author. When is the deadline for recommendations in slot 4? You can get letters of recommendation up until slot 5, which ends October 18th. No, programs understand. I can't tell you how many program directors have said this, that they know that they are expecting letters after you apply. So slot 5 is the rotation right after you apply, so that's not an issue. Letters in 4th year, they're not required to be sent to me. If you don't want to send them to have them in your residency file, that's fine. ERES tokens, I will find out after I have my advisor webinar next week. But I can't get into ERES residency 2027 to send out tokens yet. If I took a meaningful gap year prior to starting college, can I include it? Yes, you can. A lot of students include what they did during their gap year as an experience. For people applying to transitional years and advanced positions and categorical positions all at the same time, are they notified that they have matched the actual specialty at the start of the match week? Or do they just get a general notification? I will have that information in the rank order list webinar, or the SOAP webinar. I'm not sure what they tell you. I'd have to find out. Everything changes year to year, so I don't want to give you incorrect information. A standardized letter is slow. For example, EM has a standardized letters. They're the slows. It's where it's very similar to your evaluations, where they rate you 1 to whatever based on other students that have been in that specialty. Yes, letters of rec can be uploaded after applications have been submitted. You only have 1 extra slot, though, slot 5. Which specialties require SLO and how can we ask for those letters? You don't have to ask for those letters. They're required by the governing bodies. So the department in the hospital would know. That's something that will be in the information you get. Is there harm in having letters submitted after the September 22nd date? The only ones where it may impact are the the specialties that have universal release dates prior to November 1st. Right now, I know that is OBGYN. I also know it's general surgery. We haven't gotten any other universal release dates for October. How many signals do we get? That will be sent out to you because it can vary from 5 to 30, and some have gold and silver, and some only have 1. Yes, you can submit September 2 score after September 2nd. As I mentioned, just make sure you send an email to the coordinator so they make sure that they download it. Do providing the regional preference increase your chance for interviews? I would look at the specific programs in Residency Explorer, because as you saw when I went through the PowerPoint, some of them use it and some of them don't. You never, ever, 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 ever apply for 2 specialties at the same hospital. Do not do it. You will not get an interview from either of them. You can apply, for example, to family medicine at Zucker Northwell Plainview and internal medicine at Zucker Northwell Staten Island, but you can apply to family medicine and internal medicine at Zucker Northwell Staten Island. It's the specific hospital. Think of it as the building, not the health system. Specifically, specialty-specific meetings will start mid-July through the end of August, and they're Tuesday nights at 7. Where is the information for the psych slow? You can try the APA. Otherwise, the departments will have it. Do we just name our scholarly collection? No. That was their example, the scholarly collection A, B, or C. You can name it the title of the project. That's the best way to do it. Latest date to upload letters for OBGYN, September 17th for OBGYN. And when I do the residency cast, I know that they said students have to have all their documents in by September 17th because they need a week to do whatever they do in OBGYN before programs get the applications. If you do not get a chair letter for IM, can you not apply? I don't know anyone who's not gotten a chair letter, to be honest. You have 4 slots, 2, 3, 4, and 5. You just need a sub-I or a subspecialty, which is, there's plenty of those, ID, HEMONC, FM. And there's never been an issue since that requirement's come in for a student to not have that letter. Now, if you're applying to 3 specialties, you get whatever signal is for that specialty. So you may have 5 for family, you may have 12 for internal medicine, and you may have 30 for ortho. The signals are specialty specific. They apply to only that specialty. How many letters do we need for EM besides? You need 2 slows, and your 3rd letter can be from any specialty for EM. When is the latest you should have your COMLEX 2 score by? Ideally you want it when you apply, but I wouldn't go much past October because there are programs that will not interview an osteopathic student without a level 2 score. And as I stated, if you don't have it by February 1st, you'll be pulled from the match. Is it better to get a letter of recommendation from elective of a prestigious school or a sub-internship of a less? I honestly don't look at it. Some students look at the hospitals. I think what's in the letter is more important than where it came from. If you are at an elective and you have someone who knows you really well and is going to write a great letter, and then you're at a sub-I of a less prestigious hospital and you don't get to know them, the letter that provides more information about you is the better letter. The students applying for EM or IM should take USMLE Step 2 as well as COMLEX 2, or is COMLEX 2? Yeah. Family medicine COMLEX 2 only is fine. EM, IM, I'd have to look back at that, but I think I just did it for somebody this week, and the majority of our students, if you're interested in IM and you want to do community-based hospitals, you should be able to match with COMLEX, but if you want any academic institution, they generally want Step 2. Experiences are from college through medical school. Students couples matching. Yeah, I'm working on having that couples match workshop in a week or 2. But yes, you do indicate it in your application. And just so you know, not that I want any couple to break up, but you have literally until you submit your rank order list to change your mind. you're not assigning a letter as a chair letter. You're just designating that the person who wrote the letter was a chair. So, if the person who wrote the letter is a chair, you designate that it's from a chair. Same with whether you're third year or fourth year. You're not designating which is a chair letter. You're just saying that's who it's written by. When's the latest we need to our step 2 comics was uploaded to ERAS? Can this be done after August 7th? Yes, it can be done after August 7th. You're not applying to the last week in September. Can I apply preliminary category? No, you cannot apply preliminary. It's not a good idea. I won't say no. It's not a good idea to apply preliminary medicine and categorical at the same hospital. You can apply preliminary medicine and you can apply preliminary medicine and your advanced specialty at the same hospital. Let's see, where am I up to? Can I apply preliminary category? Okay, that was that one. Does psych need a chair letter? Not as of now. Lord knows. What's the purpose of the LOR writers to send a letter to the school? Does it? Now some students who we keep them on file, for example, if a student doesn't match and they're applying to a program that doesn't go through ERAS or something like that, we have them and can send them on their behalf. I have like, if I have a student who doesn't match and doesn't get a position in SOAP, they want that stuff sent to them. They don't want it through ERAS. So that's why it helps. Is it too late to join associations? So I am? No, it's not. As I've stated, as you're applying, can't get 2 letters from each for year 4, you dual apply. Clinical letters must be from either 3rd or 4th year clerkships. That was an update from the merger. So they accept 3rd year letters in the same way they do 4th years. I've had students only apply with 3rd year letters and match. I have my 2nd EM sub-I ending November 22nd. Is it okay if I can? That's really late for emergency medicine, for the second slow. Because they generally start sending out interviews after their conference, so they usually send out interviews starting early October. I would see if I can move that date earlier. So a chair letter can be PD, assistant PB, or corporate director. Yes, I'll send out that slide to everybody so they know. You're only able to acquire subspecialty rotations prior to slot 6 and only get 1 general IM rotation in slot 6. Your subspecialty, no, they don't see what rotations you get. I run the transcripts in the beginning of August. So every dedicated study slot's on there and maybe slot 1, but in our institution, rotations don't get put on your transcript until you get your grade. So. So I'm applying peds and child neuro, and a program has both as residency options. Does the same will apply if not submitting both apps to the same place? That's a tricky one because peds is a pathway to pediatric neurology. So I don't think it should be an issue. Residency cast doesn't open until June. And applications for OB are due September 17th. But I'll go over all of that with the residency cast webinar, which is probably going to be the second week because I'm at ACOM in Bethesda next week. So it'll probably be the second week in June. Does anyone else have any questions? Okay, so oh wait, I just got another one. Okay, for people applying to transition years in advanced positions and categorical positions all at the same time, but they need to know that they've matched. I think I already answered that. I won't, I'm not sure that what they're gonna do this year, so I will know that either at the rank order list or the SOAP meeting. If I do bad on step 2, can I not report it? The only thing I can tell you is ERAS has been telling students for the last 2 years that osteopathic students are only required to report COMLEX scores. I don't make that decision. That's governing bodies make that decision. Want to apply combined EMIM programs, what should I be getting? LOLs. In addition to slow, you ideally would like to get at least 1 IM letter, if not 2, but at least have, your 3 required letters should be for EM and or IM. And if you want to add a 4th letter, you can add a 4th IM letter. It's a lot of information, I know that. So the one thing I will say is if you get an email from me or Juliana, please read it. We don't send out a lot of emails, but remember, we are the only 2 doing residency. So if I'm sending out an email, it's because something changed. It's because there's an upcoming deadline. It's important that you read them. We try and put high importance on them to try and separate them from everything else, but there are some people that just put high importance on every email they send out. But please just, our simple philosophy, and Juliana will agree, we simply want you to match where you want and in what specialty, and we will do what we can to help you get there. If I have already confirmed the letter request for upload for department yet, but I forgot to select that option, but they haven't submitted a letter yet, should I submit a new request? Yes, you can do that. But just let you know that almost every attending in a hospital has titles under their name. Some have 2, some have 4, some have 5. So, it's up to you whether you want to create a new one. The other one nobody knows about, it just sits there like in a cloud and nothing happens to it. I plan on dual applying, but my application looks heavily skewed toward one specialty over the other. What if the other program gets the sense that they are the backup? If research is the thing that's heavily skewed, I don't worry about that. But you try and balance your other experiences so they're a little bit less focused on one specialty. If it's research, they know that a lot of students are doing research early on, and a lot of times it's very different than what you're applying for. But if you want to talk about it at some point after June 8th, just email me or I'll email me and I'll look at your application. I'll look at your CV and see what you're referring to. All set for now? Okay, so thank you for attending. As I said, over the next 2 weeks, I'll be sending out, different things that we talked about that you need to see. I think at some point, Juliana will send out the recording sometime next week, so that you'll have that. And then I'll send out the various aspects, specifically the areas that have changed, so you can really look at what's going on. And if you have any questions, just reach out and we will get back to you. So good luck, all of you, on your exams. I wish you the best. Juliana wishes you the best.
Good luck.
Good luck. And remember to take a break once in a while from studying so you can clear your bread, even if it's just to go outside and walk around for a little bit. All right. Enjoy your weekend. Take care.